Good morning, America. Uh, it's Murray Hertz from UTS, Director of Entrepreneurship. On behalf of everyone today, I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. As the traditional custodians of the country I am streaming from today, we pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I thought it might be nice to make some overseas UTS alumni and supporters a little bit jealous. I wish there was better weather in Sydney at the moment for it, though. Not perfect, but it's wonderful to be here. I'm also honoured to be speaking to you today on an important day, Veterans Day, which we observed in Australia yesterday, a day to honour our service members. Today we remember their achievements, the courage it took to defend our countries, their dedication, and to them we say thank you for their sacrifices. So, UTS Startups. UTS Startups is kind of interesting. Every university has a program to support entrepreneurs. It's wonderful to see that across universities broadly. But UTS Startups is a little bit different. In UTS Startups, we're focused on changing behavior at scale. So to take every one of our 45,000 students and help them understand what they can be as entrepreneurs, particularly the people that don't see themselves as entrepreneurs. To encourage them to start, encourage them to continue, encourage them to grow, connect them to what they need, including the people watching this stream. So I'm very excited for the people that are watching here. Most importantly, though, we then get all these wonderful people that we are honoured to work with to help us to inspire other people. So to talk to tens of thousands of people in high schools at UTS in the general public and help them understand entrepreneurship as well. So we do this work to drive economic, employment, and learning outcomes for people. In the last year, we've created 401 paid jobs in these startups. 2,200 of our students have had different learning engagements through internships, in-subject projects, and workshops. It's been 3 years since we started, and every day I just feel more and more grateful for what we get to do. It's a special place. So, enough about UTS Startups. We are here today for the startups that you're about to see. These are startups that are doing very well locally and in different markets around the world, but have their eyes set on North America, America in particular, in terms of their expansion. So they're looking for investors, they're looking for partners, they're looking for tips. Today, to help with that, we have 3 members of the UTS North American Advisory Board who will be serving to provide feedback on each startup and recommendations on how to best enter the North American market. This North American Advisory Board provides strategic support in building and sustaining a thriving community of alumni and friends in North America. This board has some truly incredible examples that you're going to see in a second of the kinds of people that come from UTS and who I think are exemplars of people that want to support the next generation of people from UTS as well. So from this board today, I'm honoured to be joined by Rob Castaneda, CEO of ServiceRocket, Vivian Wong, Group VP of Oracle Higher Education, and we also have a very special guest, David Brown, Trade Director, San Francisco Landing Pad for Austrade. So thank you very much for joining. David, I'm going to throw to you in a second. 1 second, let me add you to the stream. Welcome, David. Can you tell us a little bit about Austrade and what's going on there, please?
Sure, Murray. Yeah, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be with you all here today, and thanks for having me along. I've spent the last 4 years in San Francisco working with Australian startups and scale-ups, looking to land and expand in the US. First in the private sector for an Australian company as US employee #1, and then now 2 years at Austrade. Today, I just wanted to briefly speak to you about what Austrade is doing to support Australian tech companies in the US and beyond. And for the startups on the call, just provide some insight on the US market at the moment and leave you with some tips for what you can be considering in the US expansion. So for those that aren't aware, Austrade is Australia's federal trade and investment promotion agency. We promote Australian businesses and products to the international markets around the world and promote Australia as a place for international businesses to invest. Both missions are designed to enhance Australia's economic prosperity by creating jobs and growing exports. On the exporter side of things, for Australian companies, we have a global network of 67 offices in 46 countries. We support Australian exporters by advising them on local market conditions and entry strategies, connecting them with ecosystems and opportunities in market, and supporting their in-market activities as they go along their journey. The program I'm specifically responsible for is the San Francisco landing pad, which is a free 3-month market immersion program for Australian market-ready tech-enabled scale-ups. Austrade also has landing pads in Shanghai, Singapore, Tel Aviv, and Berlin. And we also provide offshoot fintech-specific programs in New York and London. The landing pads program has been running for around 5 years, and we have serviced over 170 companies through San Francisco alone. We offer companies assistance in establishing their presence in the US, connecting to local startup ecosystems, not just in San Francisco, but all throughout the US, and supporting them as they execute on their US go-to-market strategies. We also provide 3 months of co-working space in downtown San Francisco, which we're very excited to be spinning up once again for 2022 with travel resuming from Australia. Applications will be opening for our US Spring 2022 cohort shortly. And if you're interested in applying, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. The US is open for business, and people here are really ready to move past the pandemic and get back to normal. Having said that, there's certainly been a shift away from city centers like San Francisco to more suburban areas with the work from home trend persisting for now for a lot of businesses. So the result of that is some businesses in these city centers have not survived, which is sad, and that's visible on the streets with some shops and hospitality venues that are still boarded up. In terms of recent investment and venture capital trends, there's no shortage of capital at the moment, and deals are being done, and big deals at that. Early stage valuations have seen a big jump through 2021, and there's a lot of dry powder or unallocated capital out there. Unfortunately, funding for female founders has retreated during the pandemic, and some commentators are putting that down to more women having to focus on traditional caregiving roles during the pandemic. I think a positive note is that there are more and more funds being established that are dedicated to supporting underrepresented founders. So hopefully we'll see a correction in this area soon. COVID has leveled the playing field a little bit in terms of foreign companies having access to US investors and capital without the need to travel and be in market. But with that comes lower barriers to entry and more competition. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. For the companies pitching today and any startups on the line, just have a few tips for you as you think about the US market. The US is a massive market, as we all know, and you need to be really intentional and focused with your market entry plans here. While the learnings from your Australian traction will be relevant, you might most likely have to approach the US in a different way. There's more noise here, there's more competition here, and you need to be more intentional and focused about the way you block and tackle a market of this size. So make sure you do your prep work and expect that to take around 12 months, maybe longer. Really understand the size of the opportunity for you in the US so that you can take an informed decision about the appetite for risk you have in terms of the investment you're willing to make to tackle this market. Understand the competitive landscape and where you'll find your white space, the room to scale in this market. And understand who your US buyers are and what motivates them. It might not be the same as Australia. We have a US Export Acceleration Bootcamp, which goes through these issues in the planning phase. Use your network in the US. We all have one. It's just a matter of mapping it out and finding your cheerleaders and influencers. And if you don't think you have one in the US, think again. Last night I ran a search on LinkedIn and found over 5,000 people in the US who have UTS listed as one of their universities and that are currently working in the US. 665 of those are in the Bay Area alone. We at Austrade use this for our outreach on occasion, and you'd be surprised how well it works. And finally, people in the US like dealing with Australia and Australians. Our countries have a strong history and connection. Use that to your advantage, but don't let our casual, self-deprecating personalities hold you back. I'd like to wish all the companies presenting today the best of luck on their US journey, and thanks for having me.
Thanks very much. I think the Landing Pad initiative has been fantastic. I know so many startups from Australia that have found their feet over there thanks to your help, and in other parts of the world. It's wonderful work, and we appreciate it deeply. Any startups in Australia, if you're thinking of expanding, please check them out. I'm going to add a few more people now. Rob, welcome. Vivian, welcome. Travis, welcome. Okay, so we have Travis Johnson, Global CEO of Podean. Thank you very much for joining us, Travis. Vivian Wong, Group VP, Oracle Higher Education. Thank you, Vivian, for joining. Rob Castaneda, CEO of ServiceRocket. Thank you, Rob, for joining. These are our judges. Judge is probably the wrong word. Supporters? Yeah. Let's stick together, help some people from UTS to achieve what they can achieve over there. I'll remove you for the time being, but thank you very much, David. And we will introduce Anna Wright. Okay, Anna, are you ready?
I think so. Thanks, okay. Murray.
Take it away. Thank you very much, Anna.
Okay, so I'm hoping that all the tech is working, Murray, but hello, everybody. My name's Anna Wright, and I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders at Bindi Maps. So we're all used to using our smartphones to navigate our way around outdoors, but once we get indoors, all of that disappears. And our indoor spaces are only getting larger and more confusing. Digital kiosks are there, or paper maps, but I challenge you, can you all remember the directions once you get to a digital kiosk? Another big point is that all of these solutions to indoor wayfinding are inaccessible if you are blind or vision impaired. And I'd like you to all ask yourselves, the next time you see a braille sign somewhere, ask yourself, if you were blind, how would you even know that that braille sign was there? So it's a confusing place, the indoor space. And it's not just a problem for us that need to visit these places, these hospitals, these shopping centres, these universities. People getting lost also costs a lot of money to venue owners and also visitors' goodwill every day to people getting lost, getting frustrated, and leaving in a bad place. So we created Bindi Maps. Bindi Maps is a smartphone application that helps anyone now navigate these indoor complicated spaces, so like your hospitals or your universities or your shopping centres. Nowadays, anyone can use the app, but when we first built it, we built it specifically for people who are blind or vision impaired. So it works for them in a thing we call VoiceOver. We've gone on from that, we've made wheelchair accessible routing, and we're currently working on autism spectrum routing. So the way that it works, it pretty much works just the same way as one of those digital kiosks works, but it's all within your own phone. So you can search for your locations, you can get information about your places that you want to visit. And right from the very beginning, we've worked with guide dogs here in Australia, Vision Australia and Royal Society for the Blind to make sure that it's fully accessible for people who are blind or vision impaired. And since we've been doing wheelchair routing and also autism spectrum routing, we've been working with other advocacy groups here in Australia just to make sure that we cover off all the things that we need to cover off to make an app truly accessible. So the way that we do this, the way that we manage to get GPS effectively indoors is that we have our own algorithms for localization, and we're accurate at the moment from about 50 centimetres through to 150 centimetres. And then we've also got a navigation framework and also a natural language framework that we use to give directions so that everybody, regardless of ability, can have a seamless navigation experience indoors and outdoors. Bindi Maps has a number of other features, important ones in the case of emergency evacuations. Here in Australia, Bindi Maps is the only way that somebody with a vision impairment can independently evacuate a building in an emergency. Most people with vision impairment, if the Bindi Maps is not there, they are told to wait at a goods lift for the fire department to come and find them. So not exactly the best experience for them. There's a few other things, but one of my favorites is being able to drop a pin. I use that to drop a pin on my car so that I can find my car once I've finished at the shopping centre. It's a huge problem for me usually. We also collect a whole bunch of anonymised data, and we find that this is very helpful to our business owners, especially during COVID, because it helps with cleaning decisions and the like. It's a cute little app on the outside, but of course on the inside there's a lot more that's going on. But in particular, when we're talking about the US, we've made sure that we're ready for huge growth. We've been seeing huge growth through Australia, but we can do everything now from Australia. We don't need to physically be in a location to be able to deploy Bindi Maps, which is very exciting. The market in Australia is huge, so of course internationally it's even bigger, and our plans are that we're going to start to move. So our app, it's a SaaS model, so fairly simple, and we've had huge traction in Australia. Even during COVID, we've taken over a lot of the large verticals here. And so now we're looking to go internationally. A lot of our clients are already international. So we're hoping that we can work with them to enter these different markets, and starting with North America. So plans going forward for next year and forwards is to start our international expansion, which is why we're here. Any comments, any help are gratefully received. So thank you very much. These are my contact details, and I'd love to connect with anyone going forward. Thank you.
I'm clapping for that traction map. That is ridiculous. I think other people will too. I'll just add a few more people and I'll hide those slides. So, Rob, I'll start with you. What did you think? You're on mute.
Suffering from the Zoom mute monster. Firstly, congratulations. It's amazing to see. I think often we get pitched and shown decks and things like that, and then you see the pipeline size and the traction and the real charts underneath. And I think in general, Aussies tend to do the work first and then do the slides later. And which means underneath we have a good reputation for having, good quality businesses underneath, which is really good. What came up for me is thinking about what we see a lot of at the moment is a lot of ecosystems out there, and those ecosystems, in Australia, a very popular one would be in Atlassian, right? That everyone knows Atlassian. They have a thriving ecosystem and apps, and Salesforce and Shopify, platform after platform have a whole bunch of apps and app stores, right? Google's as well. So what comes up for me is thinking about in penetrating a lot of these markets and thinking about that, what we're seeing a lot is software companies wanting to integrate and put apps in a lot of different app stores as a mechanism to, do lead generation, get their name out there, get exposure, and maybe look at some interesting use cases. So that's predominantly what came up for me after being kind of like, wow. I also have, just in general, accessibility here is a big thing. Although my perception is there's an element of care that I see from Australia, that we have an empathy with that stuff. And here it feels a lot more like I want to do something so I don't get sued. So there's a lot of fear-based angle, fear-based part of that. And so I just put that up there as a way to think about what the general I guess, mindset might be here. I mean, as an example, there are folks in our particular city that go around measuring doors and measuring angles of, pavement and suing landlords, for those things and building up court cases, right? So in an effort to, just get paid off and move on. So there's some interesting stuff to think about from that point of view.
Thank you. Now, Murray, you're on mute.
Okay, you're allowed one. Thank you, Rob. Travis.
What is the actual tech behind it? Is it a beacon-based thing? Is it, obviously, when we're talking about navigation indoors, and especially in big box type retailers in the US, signals of any description are hard. And even if you go downtown in New York City, it'll tell you that you're multiple streets away. How can you determine the accuracy?
Yes, so we use a combination of SLAM technologies, beacons, all sorts of different things, but that has been something that we've had to be very particular on, is the accuracy, because we started guiding people who were blind. And like you said, with GPS, it could be you're in the middle of the main road or you're on the pavement, and it's a very different user experience for somebody who's blind. To be in the middle of the road compared to the pavement. But yes, we do have the accuracy, and it's getting, with the way that our algorithms are learning, it's getting better and better.
Okay, but
time.
it does
and
have
we do precincts.
a bit of an obligation by the user to install some beacons or some hardware to improve the accuracy.
Yes, but we handle that. If the beacons aren't already there, we've found with a lot of these big box buildings, especially the newer ones, they've already got a beacon network that we can plug into.
Okay, great. And just echoing Rob's thoughts also on compliance officers, risk officers. So the people that you may approach for something like that in Australia are probably different to the people that you would approach here, because there is that mentality of, am I de-risking my business and I need something like you? I need diversity and inclusion, and there are plenty of people in these titles also to make sure that they've got an accessible workforce and things like that. So yeah, the typical path you may think of to sell in a technology may be different in the US.
Thank you, Travis.
Thanks, Travis. Vivian, please.
Rob and has already touched on quite a few things. So the one thing that hasn't yet been brought up is IP protection. So I assume you have some pretty good IP there that you want to make sure you protect it from others from imitating what you've got. So think about patents. Protect yourself with patents will be one advice I give you. The other one is probably really think about scalability of your product. Is your product today, how many customers do you have today? I assume dozens and dozens of them, right? But it's one thing to have 100 customers versus 1,000 customers. So is your product really scalable when you have massive volume of customers on it? The other thing is, internally from operations standpoint, I've been through quite a few startups in that there's a common theme of startups that grow from strong growth to exponential growth. There needs to be a level of leadership growth as well. So you've got to have the right folks within your company to make sure operational efficiency, making sure you have set processes in place so things don't fall through the cracks. A lot of the times when companies grow too fast, you become incredibly chaotic. And the last piece of advice I have for you is possibly make sure your product is easily integratable, because as you're looking at expanding your footprint, the more easy it is is for your app to integrate with other enterprise apps, the faster it is for you to grow your customer base. And from Oracle perspective, we actually have Oracle for Startups, where we can provide access to you either through mentorship, either through access to PR or analyst events, or even just access to our thousands and thousands of customers by making those kind of introductions from within the ecosystem. And something to explore, goes back to what everyone has touched on, in that having the right ecosystem to support you is really important. And if you don't already have board of advisors or board of directors, I would recommend that as well, because it will be good for you to stand on the shoulders of giants folks who have done it before, like Travis or Rob.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vivian.
Thanks, Vivian. That's one of the exciting things about this for me. Anna, sorry for jumping in, but like, mapping is big, and indoor mapping has not been done well. So the addressable user base of this is basically everyone that walks around indoors and gets lost, if you can crack it. David, bring us home, please.
Yeah, great job, Anna. And a couple of things. First of all, something really practical. When you're talking to a US audience, centimeters converting to inches, please, and dollars converting to US dollars. So drop all the Australianisms, when you're facing the US audience. That's an easy one. You spoke a lot about the features of the product and the benefits for users. What I think you could focus more on is the benefits for the retailers and the property owners, the center owners. What's in it for them? They're the ones that have the outlay of the cost to install and maintain. What's their return on that investment? There's multiple angles there. There's the accessibility angle. There's the risk angle. Even proving how much more people spend when they have a pleasurable shopping experience and aren't getting frustrated because they're lost. So those things are going to resonate with your buyers. I think you do a really good job of resonating with what the users want. I love the origination story coming from the accessibility angle as well. And I know you skimmed through them pretty quickly because of time, but your market opportunity slides, I saw a lot of different numbers and figures there. If you're talking to investors in the US, what they're going to want to see is your TAM, SAM, and SOM. They're the only 3 metrics you need to focus on, and they want to drill down to, if your SOM is 1% of the market, that's a big number for you to get. So I'd spend some time on simplifying those slides and really representing what the opportunity is for getting 1% of the market here in the US.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you, David.
Sorry,
Thank you, everyone.
One final thing. Your approach with getting the Aussie companies with the Aussie companies, or the international companies with the Aussie presence and the US presence is great. Like that's an excellent way to see the market. I'm working with a property a company at the moment in the parking space that's done exactly that. Big keystone companies in Australia, and they're using one of those customers to get their first properties off the ground here in the US, and that's a great way to build credibility for the US audience. So that's the perfect approach.
Thank you, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Anna. Okay, that was fantastic. I'll just pull everyone out. And I'll also just remind people that are joining a little bit late, these judges are from our North American Advisory Board for UTS. Again, I think wonderful examples of the kind of people coming out of UTS and helping UTS people to continue to turn into the wonderful people like they are. Thank you very much to our North American Advisory Board members. Now we have Dilhan. One second. Welcome, Dilhan. I love what you do. I'm not going to spoil it, but take us away, please.
Awesome. Thank you. So just a quick introduction. I'm Dilhan. I'm one of the co-founders of Urban Plant Growers. My business partner, Peter, and I started this business 3.5 years ago. And I'll just get into a bit more about it before we tell you about where we're going. So everyone's had this problem before. You go to a supermarket and you get herbs or leafy greens in a little pack like this. They're covered in plastic. You might only use half of them in your meal, and then you put the rest in the fridge. And by the time you come back to use it again, they've all wilted and died. They have a rough shelf life of about 3 days in some cases. The alternative is that you can buy a pot plant that grows the plants themselves. Often if you get these from the store, they're not made to last long. They will have poor quality soil. you might put them in a dark, shady position in which they get no light, and you'll forget to water them. So they'll last about 2 weeks. In addition to that, an increasing number of people are starting to live in apartment buildings which have limited space. In some scenarios, they aren't even allowed to grow plants using traditional agriculture due to like strata laws. And also there's a significant number of apartment buildings that face south. So they don't have much light available, which means it's hard to grow herbs, leafy greens, vegetables that need large amounts of sunlight. So the solution is that you need to be able to grow food at the point where it is consumed. If you want fresh food, you need to grow it as close to the point where it's cut from the plant as possible. Otherwise, you run the risk of it sort of wilting over time as it gets to the person. The plants need to be low maintenance so that people don't kill them. A lot of people just forget to water their plants, and overnight you can sometimes end up with ruined crops. And finally, you need to grow the food indoors to reduce the risk of pest attacks. How we do it is we sell these innovative smart garden products. They enable everyday people to grow their own herbs, leafy greens, and small vegetables using LED grow lights and hydroponic nutrients. When we started off with the product in the middle, and we've expanded our range into larger products and things that fit a bit more niches. The main intent is obviously to enable everyday people to grow their own food. So how does it work? The LED grow lights try to replicate the wavelengths of light that plants need to grow. So plants don't need all of the spectrum of light in sunlight. They primarily need the section between 400 and 500 Newton meters and 600 and 700. So we try to replicate that with most of our lights, as you can see here on the right. Similarly, plants need nutrients. In the soil, they can get a lot of this through nutrients that are dissolved in the soil. There's 17 essential nutrients, stuff like hydrogen, oxygen, iron, potassium, nitrogen, phosphate, all of that stuff. A hydroponic nutrient solution has all of that in one powder. So that's all you need to grow. You just add that into your water and you're good to go. The benefits of growing this way: food can be grown in homes without much space. You don't need natural sunlight to grow. It's a mess-free solution. Our customers will always talk about how convenient and easy it is to have the food right at their fingertips in their kitchen. The taste is incredibly fresh. You can't beat something that was just grown. And finally, the satisfaction of growing your own food. Going into some of our achievements over the last year, we've had some really good traction, fortunately. This year, we've struck wholesale agreements with Costco, Flower Power, and David Jones. We've expanded to a team of 7 and recently hired a full-time marketer, which we're very excited for. We've sold to over 15,000 customers, and we've expanded into the UK with an entirely remote operation. So we use a third-party fulfillment center, and we manage everything else from Australia. Finally, we're bringing the family farms to market, which is something that I'm very excited about. The family farm is this product on the left here, and it is central to our plan for North America and expansion in general. So, our growth plans are obviously to make growing your own herbs and veggies as common as owning a fridge. Everyone owns a fridge. Why can't everyone have a little smart garden of some variety? It may not look like this. It may look slightly different as we kind of develop, but I think at least if you can cut off your herbs, leafy greens out of your weekly shopping cart and grow it yourself, then that will be a measurable impact that urban plant growers can provide. We want to develop more products for the higher end, such as this one. We also want to develop a modular product, which is a bit under wraps at the moment, but it's basically something that you can keep adding on. And finally, we want to enable people to have a connection to their food, regardless of where they live. Thank you, everyone. I'm happy to take any questions. Here's my email and the link to our website. Please check us out.
Incredible. It's making me hungry. Thanks very much, Dilhan. I'll add Rob, Vivian, Travis, and David. What did you think, Rob? You're on mute, Rob.
I've done it twice. There we go. I'm just making sure that everyone knows this is real. And we're live. I think this is a big market. I was looking at this stuff last year, and there's a similar product by Miracle Grow here in the US, which you'd be aware of, called Aerogarden. And I think Scott's is a pretty big company, right? In that big, 100-pound gorilla. So I'd be doing a lot of research around what they're good at, what they're not good at. I think they sell through Amazon too, so they're aggressive. And but I think this whole space, there's a lot of ability to do niche stuff and then find small corners of the market. That in the US, small corners of the market can be very big versus very broad. And then state by state here in the US, as most people know, legalization of marijuana and things like that, there's a lot of these kind of products and areas that are emerging. So with all the medicinal purposes and things that are going on. So that came up for me. I think one thing, just looking at the Aerogarden, I think they're quite expensive to buy the pods and do things. So I'm curious as to, do you supply those kind of things with it as well, or how does someone get started, and what your intent is there? So
yeah, so all of our kits have everything you need to get started. So you don't need to buy any additional things. You can just get the grow kit in one go, and then you can get going. We offer everything you need for your lifetime of the product. So if you want to get more nutrients, more seeds, more growth mediums, we sell all of that. If your product has a faulty part, we will replace it. It's not like, a small part of your fridge breaks and you have to throw the whole fridge away. We're here for a long lifetime journey with the customer. We want to make sure that you're growing. We want you to get some value out of your products over multiple years. So we have everything you need to go. In terms of, Aerogarden and some of the other competitors in the space, I think if we were to move into the US, we would probably do it with, like you said, like a niche product, just maybe a single product brand, such as the Family Farm, which was the big unit you saw in that last slide there. And I would imagine that, if possible, we could expand through our partner, Costco, and go directly into that store, try build up some brand awareness through that and some sales and get some products in the market. Potentially start the business off as a bit of a shell that doesn't really sell to consumers at first, until we hit a certain size with Costco that we've got the demand for all of the kind of ancillary products that come with the bigger units.
Okay. Yeah, I know I haven't done that myself, being in software services, right? But building those relationships to even get your product on a shelf on 3 different stores on a trial, all that kind of stuff is can be pretty time consuming as well. And then do you have a strategy in terms of the razor blade model, right? When we give away the razor, but we make the money on the razor blades. I mean, is that the cash cow part of the business is the reusables, right? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, from 2 points. One, environmentally, I don't think you get much mileage out of the product unless you're reusing it for a couple of years and growing a lot of food. So we want to kind of have that relationship and selling all the reusables and stuff like that. In Australia, what we do is we're very on top of the ball with that with our email marketing. So we know roughly when people are likely to purchase. We send them reminders just in advance of when they're most likely to need a refill. And we've also got subscription kits. So every couple of months you can kind of automatically get the products that you need.
Yeah. And then, 10 years ago when I moved here, or a little bit earlier than that, I mean, you would buy a Gillette razor, and then we had Dollar Shave Club and another company called Harry's. And you would think that, hey, selling razor blades in this market would be a kind of a hard thing to do. But there's been many billion-dollar exits in that space. There might be some things to look at just in terms of how they've brought a brand on a pretty bland market, right?
Yeah, definitely. And, I think at the very start of the business, that was quite an inspiration for us. Dollar Shave Club, the way they did their marketing and the way they made their subscription kits fun was definitely something appealing that we wanted to try replicate. And I don't think we've gotten close to that until recently, when we started being a bit more on brand with how we try to get those subscriptions going.
Yeah, because Aerogarden's owned by Miracle-Gro, right? Which are the people who make fertilizer. So I don't know if they're the same kind of hip, trendy, Instagram-focused generation. So
I mean, interestingly, our product appeals to a wide variety of ranges. We've got people, in their 20s who use the product, right up to people in their 70s who they can't grow food using traditional gardening because it's too strenuous for their bodies. Whereas a little product like ours, it's quite easy. You just add the seeds in, you add water, you can do the water really gradually. I've spoken to customers who... So
that's the practical element, but what I'm focused on here is the marketing element and how you're going to penetrate and get traction.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Travis.
Hey, I'm a little biased because my agency and business really focuses on e-commerce and Amazon and things like that. So when you're considering coming into the country, what you will find is that direct-to-consumer is getting harder and harder, and especially with some of the laws and changes around Google and Facebook and Instagram, the cost per acquisition is pretty tough. So have a think about, yes, it's great that you've got Costco. I mean, they're massive, obviously. But Amazon is probably a good path for you. And I think I was going to ask you about the whole subscribe and save as well, because I think that's definitely a good path that you're going down. What I do wonder, and as you were presenting, I just typed into Google and obviously seeing US results. I typed in hydroponic herb kits and there's Click and Grow, Rise Gardens, Eden Tech, Aerogarden. There is a long list. So just nailing what is that point of difference? And what I haven't seen from any of them, and I've only spent a little bit of time looking into it since you've been talking to Rob, is around, is there a service layer as well? So is there something around the sharing economy that you can also take advantage of? So imagine you're going these herbs and whatever. Is there a way to sell them or swap them in the neighborhood with others? Or is there that layer that makes you more sticky than others that then shares, hey, there's this new seed coming out, there's this new way of growing this thing, here's these ways. So can you create a community also around the product, whereas for all the other ones I've seen, they're very product related. So just keep drilling into what can that point of difference be, because the market is already reasonably well established.
Yeah, definitely agree. It's much more competitive in the US. We would definitely have to focus on specific product, specific target audience, and really just nail that.
Thank you, Travis. Vivian.
Well, I have to say, now I want to go onto your website and purchase a beginner's kit to start growing my own herbs. So I think entering the US, you probably want to think about distribution, right? Where are you going to get your parts from, and who's actually going to be mailing the replacement or the kits out in the first place, because shipping is going to be incredibly expensive as well. And I think it's great that you have Costco in Australia as well. I assume you would have to renegotiate with Costco in the US in order to make it available. And my understanding is that to get something actually out on the shelf, like Rob has touched on, is probably a couple of years away, that there's such a super long list of products that want to be on the shelves. And so there's a very long wait. But maybe you can think about other forms, other large chains such as Target, Walmart, what have you. US is very focused on having sales or promotions around the holidays. There's just, it seems like, Black Friday is coming earlier and earlier every year. It's anytime we have a holiday, it's a massive product promotional opportunity. And so I'm curious about your marketing strategy in terms of leveraging social media. We know TikTok, for example, in the US is really hot. A lot of product placements out there. Is that something that you've been thinking about as well, Johan?
In terms of marketing and content on social media, it's something we haven't been very focused on in the past. We've recently hired a marketing manager who's really, really clued onto it. We do think content creation is kind of essential these days with a product like ours, where you can go viral if you just do the right video, if you explain it properly, if you potentially get the right people advertising what you do. We've been marketing with a bit of, budget into stuff like TikTok, as you mentioned, and just testing it out. It's pretty good for awareness at the moment, but not necessarily that great for conversions. But yeah, as Travis said, it's getting a bit tougher with platforms like Facebook. the ROAS is kind of going down over time as privacy laws and stuff come into place, which is great for the consumer. Just means we need to adapt the business a little bit. Agreed. Yeah, I think it will take a little bit of time getting into Costco America and other retailers. So yeah, we'll definitely need to think about how we slowly stage into a proper sales model in America. Oh, Murray, you're muted.
One of those days. This is what happens when you do an event very early in the morning in Australia. David.
Yeah, thanks, Ilhan. And I love the look of your presentation. Like it was very professional, very good looking deck and product, very professionally presented. You made the mistake as well of talking about strata laws and south-facing properties. No American's going to know what a strata law is, and south-facing properties are good in America and not bad. So flip them around. So you're talking about HOA rules here in the US, or a lot of people rent and don't, and are restricted for what they have on their lease rather than strata laws. Agree with sort of Vivian's point about Costco and the lead time there. I would try a tactic of using that as a bit of a stick for some of the other retailers that Vivian mentioned. So try to get them to move along better so they can trump Costco in the US. I'd be interested to know what your actual IP is in the product, because I do see, we know there's a lot of competition in this space. And what's your defendable point of difference, especially when it comes to investment for scaling this? These things are oftentimes an exercise in marketing and a race to scale as fast as possible. So you're going to need cash to do that. The investor's going to want to know what your point of difference is and where your defendable product is. So a differentiate there on what your defendable IP is. Take a look at 1.1. It's a vertical farm operation in San Jose, run by two Australian brothers. And they're more like industrial scale or like farming scale farms. But I think this is the future. They've just expanded into Arizona to build out their production facility there, one of the driest states in the US. So, and there's an angle there with Australia being the driest continent on the US as well, right? So you have an angle there to say this is Australian technology built out the driest country on earth, and we can do this. I would pick a lane for the US, absolutely, because you provided a few different use cases there of the preserving the herbs, of growing plants, and then growing your little indoor farm. Pick a lane, focus on it, hyper focus on it, get to the right audience, because that'll be key. And I tend to agree with you. It's probably on the little indoor farm thing. I think those herb preservers and the pot plants that save you time, I think that's been done to death. So many, like, you'll have a real big problem with acquisition and competition here. And I agree with Amazon as an interesting route to get this out. We've seen a few companies with consumer products do that really well here in the US.
Yeah, wow, a lot to think about. You cracked through some really incredible points very quickly. No, definitely appreciate the differentiation in terminology between, strata and HOA rules in the US. So we'll definitely have to kind of speak with someone, maybe you, to help us Americanize everything that we do. Yeah, agreed. It'll be awesome to use Costco as a bit of a, stick with some of the other retailers. And I think that will typically be a bit of a effective strategy. Just in general, I think a lot of retailers seem to follow the trends of each other. Vertical farm operation, 100% keen to check that out. There is a huge amount going on in America with vertical farms that I haven't really seen replicated in Australia. There's a couple of companies in Australia, but America just has some incredible investment going into that area as well. Urban Plan Growers so far is entirely bootstrapped, 50-50 between my partner and I, and we don't have an exit strategy. It sort of is just, we want to, at the moment, run this for as long as possible. And then, yeah, of course, hyper focused on the audience. Definitely agree with the US.
So too busy making money to worry about the exit strategy. I like that.
I think I'm not sure if it's a business that would work well with an exit strategy at the moment. Yeah, and I do just quite strongly believe that this is something that we really can help a lot of people grow food and kind of be more sustainable, take control of what they eat. And I'd be cautious about kind of giving that to other people to do, but we'll see how it pans out.
That's the thing. There's plenty of companies out there with a nice exit strategy. There's not many people that I've come across with the passion and kind of quality of what you've come up with. And I think in the long run, that's going to serve you better. So thank you very much, Dilhan.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, judges, as well. I'll just remove you for a second. Okay. Travis as well. David, it's incredible having the landing pad as a resource. It's obvious you do this for a living. And you have fantastic advice. Thank you very much. I'm going to introduce Annette. Welcome, Annette.
Good afternoon, San Francisco. Good morning, Australia. Yeah.
I will also say, normally I don't recommend videos in presentations, but you have something that actually deserves a video. So would you like to introduce a video and then I'll start that up?
Sure. We'll cut to the video where I've got the live demo. Well, it's not so much live.
Hi, I'm Annette McClelland. I'm from Takuma, and we're improving the ways humans interact with technology. As you can see here, I can operate every direction of the drone entirely with just 2 fingers. This allows me to do things previously impossible with a standard 2-joystick interface.
And we'll cut there and we'll come back to me and I'll do my slides. Yeah, so I'm Annette McClelland, I'm from Takuma, and we're improving the ways humans interact with technology. Current controllers are overly complex. They're fragile and confusing and actually haven't changed very much in the 80 years since they've been invented. The dual joystick paradigm needs to be challenged, as we found out from innovation manager Leighton Schroll, who tested out a controller. A standard controller is needed. Current controllers are fragile and confusing and complex. Often multiple operators are needed, and they're usually device specific and have months of training time to make users confident and collaboration between users to get the job done. What we've developed is a tactile 6 degrees of freedom controller. It's intuitive, universal, and robust. As you saw there, it reduces the time, cost, personnel, and training required to get the job done. Here's an example here of one of the controllers we've developed, which went out to users for high school robotics teams, as well as uses for aerial cinematography, being able to control the drone with the ball and use the other hand to control the camera or other peripheral attached to the device. Our primary customer here in Australia is Undersea ROV. So they're a company that controls underwater rovers. We met them at a STEAM demo day event at the Powerhouse Museum in Sydney, Australia. And they asked us, can we use your thing to control our thing? And we said, yeah, it should work. And within 15 seconds, we were controlling an underwater rover for the first time. They found it easier to learn, better retention, and a joy to use. Here, I wonder if I can switch back to video, if that's possible. Cool. And I'm going to skip ahead to the 2-minute mark. So our customer, Undersea ROV.
Pushing the ball that way makes the ROV move in that fashion. So up, down. I'm pushing down on the ball, or corresponding, I'm holding at the bottom, pulling up. It's just so intuitive to fly with that I don't really have to think. That's flying with one hand.
So they went back to the slides. So they went from trialing units for a few months to buying over a dozen balls, and they actually ended up making their own controller with our device. Yeah. And looks something like this, if you can see the video. And what we found with our
can be used for things beyond drones.
Yep.
Backpacks, robots, surgical robotics, and more. The human-machine interface is set to grow to 6.5 billion.
Can we go back to slides? Yeah, cool.
By 2025, as found by PR News Wire.
Remove from stream. I don't need the video anymore.
Sorry, Annette. There we go.
I'm good.
My bad.
All good. So what we've got is under CROV, has developed their own controller. They bought a dozen balls, made their own interface, and that's ideally the relationship we'd like to have. We'd like to see manufacturers working with us, purchasing our components, and we can work with them to integrate the orb into their existing human-machine interface for their existing device. They're the ones that know their customers, they're the ones that know their product that they're controlling and how best to implement it in a way that's suitable for their customers. They were actually the ones to introduce us to the Australian Navy and the New South Wales Police Force, so they're testing units there. And the innovation manager, Leighton Shaw from New South Wales Australia Police, found that
I'm hoping that's my internet, not yours, Annette. I think it's yours, Annette. I think we're getting close to the end. I'm just going to add Rob, David, Vivian, and Travis, and I'll pause the slides. And Annette will be scrambling for her
and $150,000 Australian dollars boosting female founders grant, which is allowing us to do tooling and manufacturing sovereign capability, as well as work in the US to develop with the Defence Innovation Unit.
I'm so sorry, Annette, we lost you for 10 seconds, 15 seconds there, but we have you back now. Were there some closing points that you wanted to make before we throw to the judges?
Sure. Yeah, so I was just saying that we've bootstrapped this over the last 5 years, but we've most recently landed a contract with the US Defence Innovation Unit, which is allowing us to pursue that customer and work with them to develop a soldier robotic controller. And alongside the Boosting Female Founder Grant of 150,000 Australian dollars, it's allowing us to do tooling and manufacturing locally, build up that sovereign capability. So what we're looking for right now is more customers, more partners in the market that want to give their users a friendlier control experience. I'm Annette McClelland, we are Takuma, and we're improving the ways humans interact with technology.
Fantastic, thank you, Annette. And I think a rare and wonderful example of an Australian company doing deals and getting defence contracts with overseas governments. It's not often that you see that, and you're doing incredible work through the technology that you've developed and protected. Rob.
Wow. I want to grab this thing and play around with it.
I don't understand you can't feel it.
Yeah, I think it's, I feel like I'd be able to use a drone because I can't at the moment because I'm all mixed up. I think the potential for what you have is significant. I would be living over here and moving over here, specifically here in Palo Alto, because you have Apple, Google, and Facebook all nearby. I think Facebook has just announced publicly, right, with their latest results that they're expecting their results to be affected by $10 billion in the Reality Labs area. And I think the user experience for the 6 degrees of freedom, whether that be virtual or real or hybrid or whatever that is, I think is significant at a consumer level. So I would be encouraging, if I was on the board, I would be saying, hey, why aren't you around the 3 of the 5 biggest companies in the world who are all investing lots of money in this area?
All right, I appreciate that, Rob.
Australia is a nice place. Nice place to work, live, nice and safe.
Oh, you don't have to live here, but I think I think there's a certain amount of calculation you can do for the number of days to be over here without needing to be over here.
When we're allowed to travel.
When you're allowed to travel, or getting the representation to do that, I think it's a fast-moving area, and I think any of those companies, the first ones to really crack the mainstream on how to use a lot of this new technology in a very natural way. I mean, if you've used an Oculus, that's fun for an IT nerd, but there is something to what you've got there that is very, very unique and very. It's like the Hills Hoist of the next it's one of those things. Congratulations.
Thanks to David Brown and the team at Austrade, we did spend a lot of 2019 jumping backwards and forwards between Australia and the US. So shout out to the landing pad there. And they got us this contract pretty much, told us to apply.
Lovely comment from Rodney Berry in the chat saying WASD and the mouse are not what the metaverse were hoping for, and I agree strongly. Travis.
So can you just touch on the patents and trademarks and IP side of your business?
Sure. We are patented. We've been awarded our patents in Australia, the US, Japan, Europe. That's all covered. So we have unique algorithms as well, those sort of like trade secrets elements that for unique profiles that you can make for dead zones and sensitivity for different directions, particularly useful for people with cerebral palsy and multiple sclerosis. So controlling for those accessibility things too.
And one of the areas, and I'm certainly no expert in your field, but one of the areas I wonder whether you've explored is around machinery as well, like heavy machinery and forklifts and things like that that are big and bulky but need accuracy, and cranes and things like that, and things that plow fields and dig holes. Is that an area?
Yes, so we've been part of the core network here in Western Australia and South Australia, which is mining, energy and resources, looking into applications in those spaces where there's a lot of training required, a lot of certification required, and they could really benefit from something that is more intuitive to use.
Great. And just the other area where I do have some contacts, if we speak afterwards, is in the toy industry. So as you're talking about drones, remote control this, drone that, but there's a lot of stuff and toys. There's a lot of them sold in America. So yeah, well done. Really, really cool.
Thank you, Travis.
Vivian.
Thank you, Maureen. Really exciting stuff. Annette, so do you actually make the hardware yourself in Australia?
Well, my co-founder, Michael Griffin, has been making it in the garage. With that recent Boosting Female Founders grant, we're working on making sovereign capability out of the garage and tooling and manufacturing up here in South Australia. And that's helping us with the US Defence contract too, making sure that we make stuff sovereign, and also we'll manufacture some stuff in the US too.
That's really cool. So touching on what Travis covered, I assume you already have the IP for your special ball. Yes. Okay, that's cool. So I think congratulations on getting the U.S. defense contract. That's working in the U.S. for a number of years. I know how hard it is to get that. So that's huge. Are you from your target customer perspective? Are you going to focus more on the particular type of customers, or are you intending to just being opportunistic and open it to everybody?
We have been very opportunistic. We sort of followed the leads as they've come. So the underwater rovers just happened to be volunteering with us at an event. The defense solicitation, David Brown and the team at Austrade let us know about that one. So all the things that come available to us and the things that follow, and whoever pays for it first gets it.
Okay, cool. So I do wonder if there will be benefits for you to focus on some of the industries you've already gained some traction, because you use them as references to help you get other customers in the same space. So that would be my advice. Be very deliberate and focused, especially now that you are gaining more traction. You want to make sure you're targeting the right customers and not just everybody. That would be my advice.
Thank you, Vivian.
David.
Yeah, Vivian, you took the words right out of my mouth. And Annette, we've spoken about this before, and we love you to death, and we're so happy with what you're doing with the DIU, and that is huge validation for what you've done. And I think you talk too much about your product in your pitch. All you need to say is that the US Defense Department trusts this technology on its soldiers, right? And that's enough to explain that you've got something that works, that's reliable, and that you can sell. I want to see more strategy. I want to see more opportunity. I want to see more applications and what you're targeting, to Vivian's point, in your deck. That's where your investment's going to come from. I love I love where you're opening, you're changing the way humans interact with technology. So is the ball just the beginning? Is there more to come out of Takuma? Sell us on that vision, because this is a huge space. There are other people doing, computer vision control now of devices and things. Like, I want to know where you are in the market, where you're going, and what the future looks like. You guys have been super scrappy and super resourceful to get where you've been and to have the success that you have. I think now, take it to that next level and come up with a business strategy that is super compelling and will get you into markets that Rob's identified or Travis has identified, and go after that and build, sell. The future is big for you guys.
Thanks, David, and to the whole team at Austrade.
I am getting multiple messages at the moment from people offering to invest. So
yes, we have bootstrap still. We are thinking about it, though. It's the time to think about it.
How many years of development have you put into this?
It's been over 5 years now, bootstrap between Michael and I.
Okay, and to wrap up, on Veterans Day, what does this mean for a typical person that might use it? What bring me to the kind of personal story of what this can mean for someone out there on the field?
Currently, it takes months to train soldiers on being able to use a controller, being able to control the drone, and be able to control the camera at the same time. What we're developing is a one-handed controller to allow you to do that. Only 2 fingers to control the drone. It's intuitive, it's universal, it's robust. We've had soldiers in the US try it out, test it out. They're giving us feedback, and over the next 12 months, we're developing that technology specifically for that use case. And the US Defense is paying for it. It's great.
Perfect. Plus, all the kind of people at home on Meta geeking out and doing whatever interactions they can do on that as well. So wonderful work, Annette and Michael. We'll wrap up there. Thank you very much to our judges. And I will add our next guest, Angus. Welcome, Angus. How are you doing?
I'm very well. How are you going, Murray?
Fantastic. I'm very excited. You are our last pitch today. We're going to end with a bang. So just share your screen and I'll bring up your slides.
Okay. I think this works. Does that work?
Perfect. Take it.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name's Angus. I'm here to talk about road intelligence. I run a company with my co-founder, Emily, called Compass. And what we do is we use something called cloud-connected vehicles. So in the US, the big name in that space is obviously Tesla, but indeed there are about 600 makes and models now that are cloud connected. What does that mean? It means that there's a SIM card in the vehicle. So we're able to hook into vehicles and take a data feed straight out at the manufacturer OEM level. This gives us network-wide coverage. It's actually worldwide coverage, I should say. And it allows us to understand what we call road intelligence. So the true driving behavior and how a vehicle interacts with the road. So maybe I'll go back and I'll just talk about why this is important. Currently, the way to survey roads and the way roads are done, both in the US, the UK, Europe, and Australia, among many other countries, obviously, is that if you want to understand whether to repave the road or whether it's too busy or congested, you put down a physical tube, those loops that you drive over, a camera, or you send someone out to count. Now, they're the traditional ways. Admittedly, the cameras now do have a bit of AI for image recognition, but it still involves sending out a little man. The cool thing is that we don't need to do that anymore. The cars are our sensors, and this allows us to do a whole bunch of new stuff instantly behind your computer screen. And so what Compass does is we've developed 4 key products that ingest literally billions of points of data from these connected vehicles. So I'm going to walk through the products now, just quickly. But to give you an idea of the scale, we get 700,000 trips every single day just in Australia. In the UK, and I'll show a little map of that shortly. In the UK, it's about 1.48 billion points per day. So it does actually become incredibly big data exercise. And it's only become possible because of the likes of GCP and AWS. We're a GCP company. And so SafePoint, this product is super cool. It's deployed at TMR, so the main roads Queensland. It's deployed at Transport for New South Wales. It's deployed in the Tasmanian government. Annette will be happy to hear that the South Australian government's about to have it as well. What it does is it shows where vehicles are having a near miss, where they nearly had an accident or crash. And that allows us to be proactive. So essentially it becomes a leading indicator as opposed to a lagging indicator. It uses the G-forces from the vehicles along with the proprietary algorithm, G-forces and speed, and we classify by weight. And then we essentially trigger an event and show how that vehicle interacted with infrastructure and why it was dangerous. That's SafePoint. Another product is Breakpoint. This one's super cool. It's essentially driver behavior. So if you're about to, actually it was, I don't know if you guys know Sydney very well, but this was used on the Warrenora Bridge project. It's used on the M7. It's deployed quite widely for automatic reporting. So actually it's just a report that the road agencies ingest every single day. But for the Warrenora Bridge, for example, it was able to detect that vehicles were stopping before the entry to the bridge, and that was because it was too narrow. And you can't do that with a speed survey. You can't do that with a camera. You had to use G-forces. Breakpoint is obviously showing the true behavior of drivers on the network. Survey, speed, volume, travel time, and origin and destination. It turns what was in Australia at least, and indeed in the US, I know because one of our traditional competitors that do the tubes operates quite a big company there. It costs $500 to deploy a tube on a given road. This turns that into a $3 problem. It gives you an algorithmic prediction of volume, and then speed, travel time, OD, and it's much, much more flexible as well. You can literally select any road anywhere in the nation, or indeed internationally as our new data sets roll out. Now this one is literally the bee's knees for us. PavePoint gets us very excited. TF New South Wales just bought it straight away. They didn't even need it built, so they're paying us to build it because it has that level of demand. TMR has also just agreed to a contract post-build, so the finalization is in January. This one predicts what's called the IRI, basically road roughness and road comfort, and it's based on the same technology Annette is using. It's a 6-axis gyro that's usually deployed in drones, but is now in cars, and that tells us the pitch, the roll, the yaw, as well as obviously the XYZ acceleration of a vehicle, and we turn that in with a proprietary algorithm to a roughness index. You can see the Hume Highway here, and where it gets above 5, you're looking at a terrible road. Where it's at like 1, you're looking at what we call a superhighway or an airport runway, very, very smooth. So Hume Highway is not bad, but it's got some pretty rough points. What we've done over the last few years is essentially build a massive ingestion pipeline. So we are able to ingest at scale into our system literally billions of points from connected vehicles, billions per day. And that allows us to survey any period in the past and indeed make predictions on the future. And so the beginning, this slide's here to show how fast the system's moving. 2 years was spent building the ingestion pipeline and then launching our first product. The first product was pretty weak. But now we're starting to get on a very strong roll. And as more revenue gets pumped into the business, we are also sort of picking up pace. Indeed, Wakatahi, which is the New Zealand Transit Organisation, is going to be the first international client. But there's also deep conversations with Transport for London right now as well. And that's in addition to our Australian client base. We're now launching about 2 new products a year, and this forms a strong part of our competitive advantage. It's road intelligence. It's not speed and volume. It's not, swerving, braking, steering. It's road intelligence. It's supposed to cover everything a road agency should need. Why now? The data's available now. If you hook into a Tesla, there's now 2,300 variants that it's spitting up. If you hook into a Toyota, there's about 32 variants that it's spitting up. The cool thing about this is that we have a unique access to this now, and that's largely because of my background working for SAP. And this data is forming a natural moat. Because we've been ingesting for a long time and building the analytics capabilities on top, the data is the data. It doesn't matter if someone buys it now. We have been learning longer than them on that same data. And that means that we should have a competitive advantage, particularly when it comes to accuracy for our prediction engines, SafePoint, PavePoint, and Survey. we've got a strong footprint in all of these markets, but I'll just sort of like talk through them. If you live in Sydney, local councils, local governments, in America, it's obviously going to be the city level. But indeed, because we can do regional and rural, I think there's a very, very large market there for the US. When we talk about local councils, all of the North Shore use us now. So Mossman, Ku-ring-gai, Northern Beaches, etc. A lot of broader Sydney starting to use us, like Waverley, Inner West, Bayside, etc. And now we're getting out into the regions. So Wagga, we've got a few deals going up in Mackay, stuff like that. Research organizations, UTS is a big customer, and also we're part of UTS Startups. But there's also like the Monash University Accident Research Centre and the likes. State governments, we mentioned some of them before, but the big ones are New South Wales and Queensland, and then the two smaller ones being, three smaller ones, New Zealand, Tassie, South Australia. And then private consultants, pretty straightforward, and insurance, IAG and Suncorp are both customers as well. Me and M started this thing. It's bootstrapped. It's cash flow positive. We're at a point where we're growing about. So last year we grew about 5 times in size, which was a bit grievous to try and manage. But this year we're planning to grow about 2 or 3 times, and we'll be up to about 1.8 to 2 million, something like that, in terms of revenue. Underlying that, it is profitable. Every month the cash flow is positive, but usually we burn it or try to burn it in our expansion because there's a race here and we're winning, so we want to keep that lead. And so what we're and we actually are talking to Austrade right now. David, you'll be happy to know we're dealing with Paula, and we probably will have a chat shortly with yourself as well. We're starting to figure out the key markets that we want to attack first. The UK, US, EU are obviously the best ones, but they're obviously huge, so we want to focus in. The UK is going to run naturally because we have enough connections to seem to make that work, like with Transport for London. The US, I think we're going to need to break it up into bite-sized pieces that are achievable. So that might be something that we work together on later. But that's Compass IoT, guys.
That is incredible. Thank you very much, Angus. Just while I add people, Chris McLaren had a great note in the chat saying, hey, Google or Siri or Alexa, what's the smoothest route for my trip between home and work? I would love to see that.
Yeah, that would be funny, actually. You like got a sleeping baby in the back of the car, and you're just like, I don't want to run on a rough road for this one.
I would use that. Rob,
Yeah.
What did you think?
Yeah, I was thinking makeup alert when I'm driving and I'm doing my makeup. I don't know where to watch out, putting a bit of powder on the old melon. Really cool. The few different things that come up, probably some others will have a little bit more in depth on it, but I don't really understand the pricing model and how you sell it, and being cash flow positive is great, but is that $5? Is that 5 million? But I think that what that brings up for me, and after 20 years of running this since I was a student at UTS, I still think we have a lot of growth to do in this area, is really understanding pricing models and understanding and capturing value. And I would strongly advise you have some kind of coach and some kind of methodology to continually challenge you on that, so that you're capturing as much value as you can. We're a bootstrapped company that's cash flow positive as well, and it's impressive, but it's usually just impressive to ourselves and the people in the mirror, because external people don't care, right? So investors want a return, and that return is based on value, not based on profitability. And so what you also want to make sure is that however you're pricing this, get good coin for it. So when we approached the US market, we started in Sydney, and I founded the company in Toongabbie, of all places. I think we're Toongabie's biggest IT company, right? And I would get up in the morning and I would sell over the phone to US customers, and I would sell exactly the same work we were doing in Sydney, but instead of at that stage 150 Aussie dollars an hour, we'd go to 150 US dollars an hour. And so that, at a 60% exchange rate, for the same amount of effort we had, we ended up way more cash flow positive. And so I think there's some financial modeling that I wish I did earlier in our business and had someone really cranking on the facts and the modeling to help inform my decisions as a CEO. And I think you've got a really smart product. Like you said, you're in a race. Your roadmap has the US later and later, and you've got a plan in your head, but I think you could be informed and coached just with some extra stuff that will help make your gut decisions even better. So without telling you what to do, just as in assemble your team to help you make those decisions. So
in the background, I didn't say this because I was sort of rushing, but in the background, Transurban has a big US footprint, and they are a big customer of us, both in Australia and the US. Transurban is also looking for a strategic type investment, but we don't, cash I don't think is going to be the issue. Like our deal with TMR is about 820,000. I don't think that's the big limitation here. It's just that it's government sales. That's the big limitation here. And when you're also a monopoly, in Australia, we are genuinely a monopoly. There is no competitor. We know that because the governments won't actually go to tender with us. Even for those very large amounts, they'll put what's called single select on and run a single procurement process with us. We've got to get that up with the US market as well. And that takes a fair bit of time.
Yep. But there's also a lot of smart people around here too, with a lot of data. So,
Yep.
So anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Travis.
Can you, Angus, just tell me software, hardware, somewhere in between? So obviously there's the analytics. Okay, so when you're talking about the gimbal and the hardware, that's just an integration into existing hardware, and you're providing the software and analytics layer. Is that right?
Yeah, so the difference between us and others is that you do not need to deploy hardware with us. We are hooking into the vehicles remotely, and we have access to that today, which is data that they don't have. We do that by making a lot of essentially smaller deals with data providers and aggregating what is the largest data set now in Australia. But indeed, it's one of the largest data sets, definitely in APJ. And hopefully when we get to the US, it will be the same in the US.
And so I buy a car. So in the US, there's a company that basically did a deal with all of the TV manufacturers that aren't Samsung and LG, and it allows them to understand what you're watching, what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. But you sign the terms and conditions on that as you buy a Vizio TV in the US. How are you informing the consumer who bought the car about it? What permissions do they have?
You buy a Ford. It's the same for all manufacturers, so I'm going to use Ford as an example because we might all know it. You buy a Ford. Now you can run apps in the car, not on your phone, right? That's the big change that's happening. The car actually has the capability to run internal apps. What we do is we deal with the third-party permissions layer. So that's essentially Ford Connect in this particular case. Ford Connect is their manufacturer connect system. And that allows us to get the API from Ford, pump the data straight into us. Now, what we actually deal with is, because we're dealing with the permissions layer, anyone from tax tracking to vehicle health to whatever, the reasons you download apps on the car, we talk to them, make a deal, they pass the data. So they give us essentially the key to hook into the API, rip the data out.
Okay. And just back to, I guess, the first presenter that we had, the angle could be, yes, you named insurance companies, but also the anybody who could get sued for going into a pothole, causing an issue, causing a crash, and the rest of it. So, certainly the litigious nature of the US, that might be an interesting path for you to go down, in that you could get some big accident law firms being your biggest sales partners for the technology.
Yeah, I think that's actually a genuine opportunity. Yeah, and something that we obviously don't have in Australia.
Thank you, Travis. Vivian, pretty sure Oracle has some wonderful government customers over there.
Oh, just thousands and thousands of customers. So, I think it sounds like data is king for your product, absolutely, because you're running analytics in order to provide the insights to urban planners and what have you. I think there's probably extra sensitivity around data privacy that Trevor's kind of hinted at here. I think that might be something you want to look into. Obviously, you can buy data, aggregated data, but there's some very strong data privacy laws here that I think even as a consumer, even driving a car on the road, knowing someone's collecting data on where I'm going, how fast I'm going, and how I'm braking, I think to some degree brings a level of discomfort. So that might be something just to be aware of, and you're probably already aware of that. But I'd say really looking into. I'm sorry.
The high standard is GDPR. The highest standard is GDPR, and we comply with GDPR.
Yeah. So maybe look into how you can get the data you need in an effective way, because there's going to be a lot of sensitivity around it.
It's already there. It's like we've got it. So that's like one of the cool things. I'll just quickly show you a map of the UK. Don't know if this will work, Murray, but this is the data for the UK. This is 1 hour of coverage for us. Can you see that?
I was hoping you would show my morning commute, Angus.
This is 1 hour coverage. So obviously in regional rural, you don't get that great, but there's also not that many roads out there. But for pretty much every single, even some of these roads in Wales, we have vehicles running over them. So that's 1 hour of one day.
God.
Pretty cool.
This is incredible. David, bring us up.
Yeah, very, very cool, Angus. And I'm glad you're working with Paola, and I'm glad we're going to have a discussion soon. So I was going to say, please apply for the landing card. You buried the lead. I mean, you left it till the last 10 seconds to tell us you've already got $2 million of revenue. I mean, that should have been your first slide. I mean, come on, you've got a thing here, and it's amazing. And you're way, way, way underselling it. And when you come to the US, you got to change that. And I want to see some more structure to your presentation. Like, you didn't talk about the ROI for the governments and the insurance companies or anyone else. You didn't talk about the size of the market opportunity in terms of dollars. You didn't give us a competitor. Now, you spoke about all this stuff really, really well, and you had all the answers. They weren't on the slides. So you were showing us a lot of information about your product, probably information that you don't need to convey in a pitch of a couple minutes long. You just need to explain who you are, what you do, why it's important, the traction you have, the people you do it for, what it means to them. And people here, especially in the Valley, they get it. They get data is big. They get you can track everything now, and everyone's giving that data away. But like, what does it actually mean at the end of the day for the people who are paying money for this? What's it going to mean for the future, going forward? And the US just signed their infrastructure bill, $110 billion for roads, bridges, and major projects. So that should be in your why now, and the opportunity as well. Now there are complexities there because there's Buy America policies involved in a lot of that stuff. But if what you're doing is truly unique and they can't source that here, and you talk about the value of the tubes versus the value of your surveys, like, that's all super relevant stuff, and will put you in good stead. But I think there's huge opportunity here for you now with what's going to be happening in the US over the next 10 years, and also with just the explosion of electric vehicles, the connected vehicles that's happening here at a pace faster than anywhere else.
Yeah, Tesla's leading that charge in quite a strong way, but the others are catching up. Yeah, I'm looking forward to working with you, David. I think we'll do a lot.
That's such a good point, David, and you must see this a lot. And I'll say it is typical of Australian entrepreneurs, including myself, to be doing stuff, but that's being very kind of reserved about saying this is going to be the next amazing thing. You will leave it to the last second to say, by the way, we're making this much money already, and we don't actually need the help. But if you want to get involved, let me know. And I think when you're in an American environment, that can be perceived as someone who's not confident about their product, but it's just an Australian thing. And I think people have to understand that in America to understand the opportunities that are here better.
Yeah, it's a great point. And remember, I guess part of your messaging should be, again, developed in Australia, huge infrastructure, small population. We travel long distances by car. We have massive road problem. You know, those problems are exactly relatable to the US, just on a different scale. So, you know, use that in your messaging as well.
Yeah, and I would kind of just add on top of that in terms of think about also presenting how it helps the everyday consumer with a lot of these products that collect a lot of data and do some pretty mind-boggling things with data, make people feel less empowered, and that can cause a lot of friction just in general. I think there's a lot of use cases on safety and helping just the world be a better place. So making sure that you understand, hey, you know, these algorithms help, right? Because there's a lot of algorithms out there that right now are getting a lot of backlash for not helping, even though they're super smart and super intelligent.
Yeah, there's a balance to be struck. Yeah, understood.
Okay, thank you very much, Angus. We're going to wrap up now. Vivian, do you want to do a 10-second pitch? If you can as well, I'll throw you under the bus.
Oh, sure. So if you go to oracle.com/startups, you can actually explore a program that Oracle has established since 2017. Essentially, Oracle wants to be a partner with the startups to cultivate innovation. And Oracle does not take equity in any of the startups we support, but essentially you'll be part of the ecosystem where you will have access to mentors, events, conferences, PR, and there's a lot of other benefits as well. So, essentially we want to cultivate innovation together with you all. So you're welcome to join the program. And as part of UTS, we can actually offer white glove service to each one of you, and give you a rundown. That's beautiful. A high-level speech.
Sorry for the lack of notice on that, but thank you, Vivian. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Travis. Thank you, David. You are all incredible examples of what UTS graduates do after they graduate and the support that they continue to give. I am going to also ask everyone that presented today to, in a sentence, remind everyone watching what you need and how they can get involved with what you're doing. I'll start with Annette, please.
Thank you, everyone, for being here, participating in this. I'm Annette McClelland. I'm from Takuma. We're improving the ways humans interact with technology. And what we're looking for today is more partners, more users. Reach out to us at annette@takuma.tech and visit us online, watch our videos on YouTube, and check us out. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Dilhan.
Hey everyone, thanks again for tuning in, and thank you so much to all the judges for your awesome feedback. It was really interesting, and I'll definitely be thinking about all of the points you raised over the next couple of days. If you're tuning in during the US, and if you have any connections to major retailers or anyone who you think would be interested in wholesaling our product, I'd be really keen for introductions. And if you're in the Australia or the UK, head to our website. Christmas is coming up, get some products, buy your friends and family smart gardens and get them growing some herbs and veggies.
Beautiful. Anna.
Yeah, thank you to everyone. Thank you, Murray, and UTS Startups for organising this. I've been taking lots of notes, not just from comments on mine, but from comments on everybody else's. So thank you very much to the panel. So my name's Anna Wright. I'm from Bindi Maps, and I'm looking for contacts over in the United States in the smart cities space. And also, if anyone has any contacts in any of the advocacy groups that work with people with low or no vision, wheelchair accessible type advocacy groups, and also autism spectrum, we'll be looking to talk with them as well to make sure that we comply with all of the regulations over there in North America. So thank you.
Thank you, Anna. And Angus.
I'm looking forward to working with some of you, particularly David, into the future. And if you have, I think there's actually a nice synergy, perhaps Vivian, between what Oracle does and what we do for governments. Infrastructure is a big client of yours. It's a big client of ours. And ultimately, the intelligence actually gets run on your side because we just provide an API. So there might be a few networks there that we might want to work together on after this session. That would be my ask.
Okay, beautiful. I think we're just at time. We'll wrap up there. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to our North American Advisory Board people. You're all wonderful. Thank you, David, from the Austrade landing pad in San Francisco. Please, everyone, check that out as well. Just Google it. It's very supportive, and it's, again, your advice here has been fantastic. Thank you most of all to our startups. And everyone watching, I hope you get a piece of this and get to enjoy the future success of these companies by doing a little bit now to support them on their journeys. Thank you very much. We'll end up there. Have a great day, everyone. See ya.
Yay!